Okay, well, I just want to give you a quick look at my breeding setup. So, there's my breeding shed. It's covered down to the 6 inches above ground with painter's canvas tarps for wind protection and bisqueen plastic for rain protection. Weirdly, turns out that budgies like to breed in the dead of winter because they come from a climate in Australia where there's a long drought season and it's very, very hot and food is scarce. So they breed in the winter instead of the summer because in where they come from, the minute the rain comes, everything turns green and there's lots of food. So they're better equipped for this wintertime breeding stuff. So here's my cages. There's a bunch of birds in there just getting a little hit of, what do you call it, antibiotics because post air sac mite treatment they're still having trouble shaking it. They're all older birds, no coincidence there. They're all 2 to 5 years old. So, but here's my breeding setup. I have 10 breeder cages in here, and I have about 18 breeding pairs, or pairs that I hope to be breeding. So obviously I'm not going to breed them all at once, but I have until next March or so. March, April, May-ish. So I'm pretty sure I'll get them all bred and maybe some of them twice. So here's what my standard breeding cage looks like. These are cockatiel breeding cages. They're big because I think that birds need to be able to fly. They have a typical nest box on them. My nest boxes are all different sizes because I kind of got them from a bunch of different places. But it's kind of standard that they all have indentation in the bottom, which is covered up right now. Let me see. There's an indentation in there. And I throw a little handful of pine shavings in there because females like to feel like they're making a nest. That's why they chew on things all the time. And if you give them a perfectly clean nest box, they're going to be like, well, I got to chew on it or something. So if you put a little pine shavings in there, then they will spend some time and energy picking up all the pine shavings and throwing them out. And that will, A, tell me that she's moved into the nest box, and B, give her a sense of establishing territory. The other thing that I have in there, of course, is along with a couple of perches, positioned so that the birds can actually fly in here. Not far, obviously, but they can take flight. Is this, which is a cuttle bone and a cup with grit and oyster shell ground up in it, for chewing and for calcium. And that's about it. A big enough space for them to stretch their wings, and they can fly in place. Or actually, the cages are 24 inches wide, so they can move from end to end and actually, stretch out. I like the wire cages with a tray in the bottom because it's very easy to keep them clean and sterilized. These cages have all been sterilized with bleach, with ammonia, with everything. And I, as you can see by how clean they are, I scour them out between birds. I also, wooden nest boxes, everybody says, oh, you can't sterilize a wooden nest box. Poppycock. Bleach works just as well on wood as it does on everything else. So all of these have been scrubbed out with water and a scrub brush, sprayed with a bleach solution on the inside, left to sit out in the sun for a week. Direct sunlight kills a lot of ickiness. And then when they're nice and crystal clean and dry, I stack them away until I'm ready to use them. So I clean them between birds too. I've learned my lesson on the illness thing. I am a clean freak when it comes to these birds. And it's funny, I go and look at other people's setups and they've got nest boxes with, 2 inches of crap in the bottom of them because they never clean them out. And I'm like, how is it that your birds aren't all dying? And the answer, I'm afraid, is that their birds are all dying and they just go out and buy new ones. Because if you take a clean, healthy pair of birds, throw them in a filthy box, in a filthy cage, they will set up shop and raise a set of chicks before they succumb to whatever diseases they're going to get. And there's an awful lot of people that treat these animals like disposable pets. So People look at me like I'm crazy when I say, yeah, I have birds that are 4 and 5 and 6 years old. These birds will actually live for 10 or 15 years if you take good care of them. And don't breed them to death and don't subject them to diseases without treatment. But as I know, how do you know if a bird has a disease? It's not easy. And all I can suggest is do the medicated quarantine on your entire flock. Do it on every new bird that you come in. This guy down here, this is Hardy. He's on his medicated quarantine right now. He's just finishing. He came right at the right time so that he got treated with air sac mites when I was redoing my whole flock. And now he's getting treated with ranitazole when I'm redoing my whole flock. So when he's done, all he needs is a little Worm-X and 5 days of Coxy Plus, and then he's ready to go. So this may end up being Breezy's mate. So, but he's just in here finishing quarantine. See, the box is turned away from him. And the box that goes on that cage is turned away too. So, but these guys have all been clean. They've all had all the medications. They just need a little antibiotic support. A bird that's had the air sac mite thing for a long time, I think it does tissue damage and such. After all, it's little critters burrowing into their lungs and everything. So they tend to be prone to infection for a few weeks after treatment. So that's what these guys are doing in here. You can see Hedwig there flapping her wings. She says she sees all these nest boxes around here, and she says, my cage. She's starting to get territorial, even though there's no nest box on there yet. She can see the other ones, so your turn's coming, honey. So that's my breeding setup, and I'm going to start populating it very soon. Okay.